Hi everyone, I'm Zan, your astrologer, and welcome to your midweek astrology update, where today I'm going to be focusing especially on Sunday's super full moon in the sign of Libra, because it is a celestial conversation which is definitely going to leave some kind of impact on all of us. And the reason why I do believe that this full moon is going to be a little bit perhaps more impacting than any other usual full moon. Well, of course, on first hand, it is a super full moon, meaning that physically the moon is that much closer to the earth. So, logically, its symbolism and its power, so to speak, is a little bit stronger than usual. The moon does pull on water, on the tectonic plates, but also our emotions, and it does trigger certain energies to reconfigure themselves within. So when the moon is physically just a tiny bit closer to the earth than usual, well, that usually represents that the effects are that much stronger. And on the other hand, this full moon converses in a conversation of supreme harmony with Mars, and of course other power players as well. But Mars is very important because it is the activator, it is the energizer, it always produces some kind of action, expression. And at a period when we have the tendency to make certain choices and decisions, well, those create a specific dynamism in our lives. So this conversation between Mars and this full moon is definitely going to give us some kind of clarity to take action. Perhaps not immediately or at the time of the full moon, but in a very short time, whatever is going to be revealed to us, whatever we might have to process or, find a certain kind of clarity with in our lives, well, that is going to be the core of our choice and decision that we're probably going to take soon after this full moon. But of course, even before we have the full moon, Mars is going to be holding other very powerful and significant conversations. One is with Saturn, and fortunately it is a conversation of supreme harmony, so that means empowerment. That means that our actions and choices do have a lot of impact right now. They are potentially life-changing because Saturn is our inner structure as well. Saturn is our normality, especially in the sign of Aquarius. That kind of normality which is a mental one, our way of thinking, our thought patterns, our principles. Everything that basically is invisible as in just a thought, but it still holds our life together and it still gives it the specific structure it has. So changes, whatever we desire to accomplish, whatever actions we take or choices we make in this period are very, very important and will definitely going to have a massive impact on our futures. So even though this energy might determine us to invest all of our power, all of our energy, all of our efforts into, taking action and getting things done, yet still Saturn invites us to be extremely diligent, to only take action if we truly know what we desire and if how we desire to accomplish our goals is rooted in logic, rationality, it is down to earth, it is possible. And at the same time, it also requires us to be patient, even if we have everything that we could possibly need inside of us right now, to take the action, to do, to accomplish, to follow our dreams and goals. We still have to wait until the opportunities come together in a certain way where we will know that if we choose that path, if we take that specific action, if we make that choice, we have some kind of guarantee, at least maybe just a mental one, maybe just a rational one, that your plan has every chance to succeed, for example, or an emotional one. You have a lot of support in your life so you cannot go wrong, or physical one. You have nothing to be afraid of because you have so many resources in your life that a small loss would not, disadvantage you that much. So in any case, whatever action we want to take right now has to be rooted in a very down-to-earth logic. It has to offer some kind of stability, some kind of guarantee that it is going to be serving our greatest good in the long term. So even if we might feel the urge to act, to do, to accomplish, we still have to be extremely patient. Yes, this is a blessing, but Saturn always requires us to be diligent, to act from a place of self-knowledge, to act from a place where we cannot really compromise our highest principles, our stability, only if it's absolutely worth it, and it's very clear to us that it is worth it. So we must work with this energy and have a lot of patience, have a lot of wisdom rooted in solid life experience, all for the sake that we don't do things prematurely, because if we rush, if we hurry, if we just take a leap of faith totally blindly, even if we believe in ourselves, even if we have a lot of faith, even if we just know that we are supported, we cannot base certain important steps that we are going to be taking on sheer belief on whatever it is that we feel deep inside. This is the kind of conversation where, yes, we feel this, but we can only take action when something appears to enable that, to catalyze it maybe in physical reality. And chances are it is definitely coming, it will definitely appear when the time is right. But for many of us, perhaps those opportunities are only going to show up after this full moon or in the beginning of April. Because, sometimes karma and the linear way that things unfold in our lives, well, they do need a bit of time. We just exited Pisces season, and that was a period of karmic completions. But of course, some events, like karmic events or a communication or whatever we need to practically step out of, the Piscean energy, as in the heavily karmic charge of the past. Well, all of this does take a little bit of time until, things align, things come together. We live in a quantum universe, so sometimes quantum entanglements need to appear, especially to give way to karma, because, the purpose of, all of the Pisces season and why karmic things happen is for us to learn, for us to observe, for us to see the interconnected nature of the whole universe. So, in order for karmic things to take place in our lives, especially those which are really significant, well, we need to be also open in the sense that we need to be able to process it and ultimately learn from it, turn it into wisdom. So that's why in certain cases it takes a little bit extra time for all that Piscean energy to manifest, because it's not a fast energy at all. It is actually very, very slow. So what I'm trying to say here with this is that some of us still need some clarifications, clarity, confirmations, information reaching us to give us a sense of direction, or certain events to be guided into our lives by the hand of fate for us to have everything we need to move forward, etc. So this is where we might be trapped between the past, as in the Pisces season, and everything that the Sun and Venus traversing in that part of the sky activated, and Aries season, the new beginning, the new cycle, being born. But this is a period where, we may be trapped a part of us is still in the birth canal, in the sense that our feet are still grounded, rooted in the birth canal. It is still a karmic period. And not just because of the past Pisces season. There is another very important element which I'm going to be speaking about later, which has to do with the nodes of the moon. But our heads are already out, so that means we can already see the new, the fresh. We can already feel that much more aligned with the self, with the inner child, with our hopes, dreams and passions, with simply the desire and the lust for life, to experience life in all of its diversity, beauty, ugliness as well, of course, and not just the desire to live life, but also the ambition, motivation, that inner fire, Aries, the warrior. So that part of ourselves, that part of our psyches, which defends it and basically keeps us safe. So a lot of us might be trapped between the past and the future, the old and the next. And for some of us, this might even come through as a feeling that not only did we lose forever the old sense of normality, but maybe right now we don't even know, we can't even feel, we can't even create a sense of normality in our lives where everything is just, hanging in the air. We are always ready for the unexpected. So that's why maybe our brains, our thoughts can structure and anticipate the future as we normally were used to. And this is also the message of Saturn in Aquarius, as it holds this conversation of supreme harmony with Mars. That yes, we have to ambition ourselves, believe in ourselves, be ready to act, be ready to fight for our dreams, for our sovereignty, for whatever it is that we will to do. But when the time is right, so our actions need to be rooted in physical reality. They have to make sense. They have to have at least a logical and rational guarantee that they will lead us to where we need to be for the stability and groundedness of our long-term future, Saturn in Aquarius. So if you're feeling a little bit frustrated, tense, nervous of why you cannot do the things that you really want to do, or why isn't something that you desperately need to have in your life, regardless of its nature, why isn't it just showing up already? Well, the reason why is that we need to be in the right place at the right time, and that means different things for different people. That actually, it means different things for every single individual, because Saturn is time, and we all perceive and work with time in our own unique ways. So that's why for some people this can take place that much quicker. For others, they just have to be more patient. And also this is why deep self-knowledge and just knowing how you operate, how you work, knowing your mental sphere, also your emotional sphere, and how your unconscious influences your life is very, very important. Because if you know yourself, you know what you need, what you deserve, what you are willing to accept, and what is totally out of the question no matter what. Well, that already gives you a huge power, of being able to tell the difference between right and wrong for you personally. And that is what Saturn is all about. But of course, as I said earlier, another part of this karmic energy is Mars, as it gets closer and closer to the North Node in the sign of Gemini. The North Node is a symbol of our karmic path forward, the future, whatever it is that we need to do, either for our physical human selves, or maybe it has much to do with our soul path. Either way, even if this North Node represents something really important and deep for you, or if it's just the continuation of your life story, the next chapter, wherever you need to, progress forward as a human being. Still, it is a really important time when either we get the information that we need, Gemini, we make the plan, we weave together the plans that we want to work on in the future. For others, it is finding the right partners to share the future with. And this is true in a romantic sense, but also in every other partnerships, because Gemini is ultimately the sign of the twins. So there is a strong duality within this sign. Gemini is where you can actually consider, but not in a forced manner, but when it comes totally natural, when the other person is just like you. You see it as the self. When you make no difference between, for example, the needs of the self and the needs of whoever takes the place of that partner, the other, the sibling. May that be your lover, a life partner, and in which case it is totally natural for things to be that way. That's why in tarot the sign of Gemini is the Lover's card. Because, lovers and a union of two souls should be about total equality. Yes, you are lovers and you complete yourselves, but you're also brothers, you are also siblings in a certain kind of way, because you have to stand from a place of total equality, otherwise it's not gonna be as harmonious as it should be. But this can be totally true in a business, in an alliance, in any kind of partnership. When you're together in a business with someone, your needs are common. Everyone basically occupies the same place, so it's that much easier to work as a team when you feel the other person as your own, as almost you treat them as you would the self. So that's why for a lot of people, issues, the main karmic themes, the big subject in life is going to be about partnerships and the equality of anything that ties you together in that partnerships. Are you standing from a position of equality? Is the other person treating you and your interests and your goals as they would their own? And of course vice versa. And because we have the tendency to analyze these subjects in the present moment, this is how it's leading up to this Libra full moon, when it will be the time for disclosures, for revelations, for the light of truth of shining onto one area of our lives, where we might get all the info, may that be like practical information or inner clarity which we need in order to know where we stand from in a partnership of any kind. Even, contracts, even work matters related to work, because, you're employed through a contract, or partnerships of any kind, legal matters, anything that might need your consent, your agreement, your express promise to do something. Now all these matters are going to be highlighted, and we do have to make choices, but of course we will have all the clarity that we need to make these choices. A full moon has always much to do with completions, things coming to fruition or things coming to an end. So it can be that you take a partnership that you already initiated to the next level, to the higher expression of that partnership. It can mean that maybe you have all the info that you possibly need to terminate a contract, a partnership, go through with a divorce, or quite the contrary. This full moon also speaks in quincunx with Uranus, which means surprises, which means the unexpected, and that can even come from the inside. For example, Uranus in Taurus' value system. Maybe all of a sudden you realize that a contract or a relationship, a marriage that you were determined to terminate, maybe it takes a much bigger value in your life than you could possibly envisage before this full moon. and you will choose not to terminate it, but to improve it, heal it. Or it can play out in another way. Maybe you were determined to sign a contract, to enter an agreement, and all of a sudden you wake up to the fact that it's not really what you want and you just change your mind, and it's absolutely fine. But in any way, because this full moon speaks in a grand trine, so the moon trines Saturn and Mars trines Saturn and the moon. So it connects all of the 3 air signs in a conversation of supreme harmony. Well, this means that whatever is gonna happen, may it be information reaching your life, may it be something you discover within yourself, how you truly feel, for example, or the emotional side of the agreement, contract, partnership, etc. Well, whatever you're gonna do with this clarity information, whatever you're gonna choose, will definitely serve your greatest good for your long-term future. That is why Saturn is so important, because Saturn is truth, down-to-earth, clarity, structure, safety, groundedness. Of course, obstacles, limitation, etc. But, when there is a supremely harmonious conversation, it is becoming aware of the limitations, perhaps some which you cannot overcome, perhaps some which don't depend on you whatsoever, so you have no control over it. So you need to take even the limitations, the obstacles, everything that you cannot solve, especially alone, into consideration, because only then is going to be a decision truly wise, rooted in reality and down-to-earth matters, because that is also very important. But with Uranus, it is definitely going to be surprising. Like, let me just give you an example, a really positive example. When you have someone who you've been speaking to for some time now, but you might not even suspect what they're feeling. And when it comes to Uranus, they spit it out. They somehow let you know their true feelings, and perhaps in its shock and its surprise, you find out that you feel the same way, and a new partnership is being born, as in perhaps a friendship is going to be taken to the whole next level. But it can also play out in a totally different kind of way. Maybe that Uranus is a reflection of your value system, Taurus, because it is in the earth sign of Taurus. And Uranus is, the planet which produces earthquakes symbolically and even physically. So maybe a contract, an offer, someone reaching out to you will shake up your life in the most positive sense possible, because maybe they offer you some kind of unique financial advantage, which is a valid reflection of your own self-worth. But it can also play out in a different way, where maybe not accepting an offer, not signing a contract, because you do realize the future implications, is going to be the best choice. Maybe stopping you in your tracks from making a mistake is going to be how this full moon blesses your life. Either way, it is still towards our greater good. And this is perfectly true from a collective perspective as well, because on the world stage, Libra is courts of justice, legislation, diplomacy, international alliances and agreements. It is all about equality, equity, justice, morality, non-discrimination. And since at the time of this full moon, Mars is going to be on the North Node and opposing the South Node is the past. Everything that we should have learned from, the wisdom of the past, especially things which we must not repeat. Which means that this is also going to have a lot of karmic challenges. Maybe issues are going to be raised in courts of justice about equality, fairness, Uranus in Taurus. Maybe how material resources and help are repartitions among the population. If it isn't fair, if it has discrimination, or if the legislation is susceptible to interpretation, then this means protest, this means uprising, this means people taking this very seriously. And the Sun conjunct Venus and Chiron, exactly, this is an exact conjunction at the time of this full moon. Well, Chiron is our wounds, our triggers. Venus is everything that we love, but it is a very instinctual kind of love. Values of the heart, for example. When we value our sovereignty, when we value our freedom, we value being masters of our lives and ourselves ultimately. And if our freedom, exactly what we love and value, is being threatened, well, of course we are going to take action and fight. Let's hope that this is going to be a legal battle, as in there are going to be a lot of questions around the legislation, how the legislation of the future has to look like, what needs to be changed, modified, what works and what doesn't work. This can also determine a reconfiguration of diplomacy, certain alliances internationally. This is also when the voices of the individuals, the power of the people, has to determine a very relevant change to make things more equal, more fair, more equitable for a lot of people who are disadvantaged. And Saturn in Aquarius, yet another very important player in this grand trine, well, it means that everyone, the whole of society, has to benefit from a fair and correct legislation. It basically means that human lives and the lives of the collective are the most supreme values that everything has to protect. And of course, if leaders, because Saturn is also the sign of leader, those who take responsibility, if leaders don't change the legislation, let's say, or their tactics or their approaches, their philosophies, their take on things, Mars conjunct the North Node, how they intend to solve the situation, basically, if that doesn't, correspond to what the people, the collective wants, well, that means protests, and that means ultimately centralized power having to submit their tactics, their future plans, in order to reflect validly and give people what they want, how they want it. And it is the power of the people. This doesn't have to be logical or rational. It just has to be what people want. And this is also reflected by Mars speaking in tension with Mercury in the sign of Pisces, which kind of means that a lot of contradictory opinions, visions, even results of practical scientific research. Mercury in the sign of Pisces is medical profession. It is the science behind blood chemistry, microorganisms, anything that has to do with hospitals, medicine, doctors, as in the healthcare industry. So, certain results from these kind of researches are going to contradict each other, and this will definitely create even more hysteria, even more mass psychosis, so to speak, because people are going to be extremely paranoid. And Mars conjunct the North Node is also assertive action, so there is going to be some kind of fighting, some kind of clash, a battle, but let's hope it's not physical and people won't take to the streets and express all their anger, dissatisfaction and frustrations in a very physical way, but although we cannot exclude that. And also Mars opposing the South Node, well, that can also represent violence in the name of religion. It can represent acts of cruelty, acts of violence, which are symbolic, of course, but are gonna possibly shock a lot of us. But of course, it doesn't have to be this way, because if you learn the lessons of the South Node, then an extreme manifestation is not necessary anymore. So let's hope we learn from the past, we learn from all of the terrorist attacks and religious fanaticism, which have been impacting our lives in the past 10 years, or much more than that, of course. So I do trust in our collective wisdom that we won't need any more wake-up calls, karmic manifestations, or gestures. Let's just hope that this might just be a remembrance or something symbolically reminding us that a rigid, extremely dogmatic kind of faith is not healthy, especially for the future where humanity is evolving. But this is where it might not necessarily have to do only with religion, because as I said, at this time, the Sun is going to hold a very tight conjunction with Venus and Chiron. So that means our wounds, the wounds of our hearts. It means that where we have been wounded, and even if we healed, even if we closed our wounds, learned from it, it turned us into a better person, a stronger person, a more understanding person. The memory of the wound is still there, and it can really, really trigger us. It can simply ignite unquenchable flames of passion, our warrior spirit inside of us, because that is when the heart, Venus, in the fiery sign of Aries, where she is not that comfortable, there she is raw passion, the instinct. She is not able to bring out, for example, her Piscean qualities, where she's exalted in Pisces, unconditional love, and everything is just spirit, everything is just an illusion, and we have to add beauty to it, for example. This is where she knows no higher meaning. She just knows whatever she has when she's alive in the now. And if it's anger, if something upsets her, if something poses a threat, well, she's definitely going to lash out. And since Mercury is in square with Mars as well, maybe, diplomatic resolution and just speaking about it, discussing it is not gonna be that much helpful. So, this energy is really good if we use it the right way. Passion, whatever it is that we love, profound self-knowledge, courage, determination, strength. But that also means that a truly wise warrior sometimes has to wait, sometimes has to follow a tactical maneuver, so it's not really rushing straight into battle. A wise warrior can do this because of his life experience, but an unwise warrior might take the most extreme expression of this energy, where it is overconfidence, selfishness, where your instincts and survival mentality dominate over you, and ultimately any opposition between Venus and the Moon can turn into fear or jealousy, not being able to accept the fact that you don't have your will and your way on a soul level, and that always creates a lot of tension, frustration, and this desire to just lash out. So what I'm trying to say here is that yes, this is supremely harmonious and it serves our greater good, but the sky empowers even bad things, bad people, those who want to create conflict, violence, etc. So it is a blessing for all of us. So let's not use it in order to just rub even more salt into our wounds, Chiron, or to blindly rush into fray and fight for our wills and our sovereignty and whatever we desire in that second, in that moment, without any second thinking. This is where we have to accept this empowerment with grace. Yes, we are strong, bold, confident, and ambitious, but we're also smart and tactical and are able to wait and invest this energy and passion when the time is right. And if it does have to come to conflict, well, there is no reason why it has to be physical, why it has to be malevolent, violent. It can simply be expressing your will, your sovereignty, and leaving people no choice but to respect it, as in you just walk away, you just turn your back to whatever is against your happiness, your will, your sovereignty. And from a legal perspective, if it's people against centralized power, there are legal ways, there are legal means. If people pressure their representatives, they will have no choice but to create legislatively, legally, what people require. If that is a change, then a change. If that is new way of doing things, new way of regulating things which have to work out for everyone. It can be like creating a totally new, never imagined before legislation, which might bring a lot of innovation, and if that is what people want, that is what people have to receive. This is where it is very controversial what the general greater good is. Do they listen to scientists and doctors, or do they listen to the population? And what if the population rejects what specialists say that it's the greater good? What happens then? Well, it takes a Libra full moon like this one for us to find out how they are going to solve the situation. I'm very hopeful that because this is a grand trine, it has to lead to something, somewhere positive, something that satisfies ultimately everyone involved. And hopefully after this full moon takes place and we head more closer to the beginning of April, that should be a period when really all of the new beginnings and everything that we have desired and worked for can finally take place in our lives. So that is why before we can actually be catapulted into the future, when we truly exit the birth canal, beforehand this clarifying, problem-solving, decision-birthing Libra full moon has to close the past, close the last cycle, and just empower us and enable us to go forth with whatever we want to do in our lives for our futures, and whatever our life goal or soul path is, this North Node ultimately. Well, this concludes today's recording. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the kind comments, likes and shares. And if you'd like to support my channel, feel free to donate on the PayPal link in the description. Thank you again. Wish everyone a blessed week. Until next time, bye for now.